this video, we're going to continue working with solving equations, but today we're going to be solving equations using multiplication or division. All right, so it's basically the same concept as in the last video where we were doing inverse operations, but basically where operations are the opposite of each other, and multiplication is the opposite of division. So in order to solve an equation, just like like we said last time, notice it's kind of basically almost the same exact notes here. You do SADMEP, you do reverse PEMDAS. And last time I introduced to subtraction and addition. Today we're looking at division and multiplication. We'll get to exponents and parentheses another day. That's not anytime soon, so don't worry about that right now. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get on to our concept. Just like before, whatever I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other side of the equation to have that property of equality. We must keep our equation balanced. If I divide away from something, I must divide from the other side in order to keep my equation balanced. So that principle remains the same. So let's go on to the problem here. I've got a couple of little word sentences that we'll show later on in the video, but let's go ahead and get to the meat of the matter here. So I'm going to do just a couple of problems with you, and then I'm going to let you do the rest on your own. So look at this. I have the problem D divide by 5 equals -6. It's asking what number D, don't know what it is, when I divide it by 5 will give me a -6. Well, how do I do that? And how do I find out? Well, we are doing reverse PEMDAS. In order to get this letter by itself, I must do the exact opposite of what I see. And what I see is that D is being divided by 5. And so in order to get rid of that division on this side of my equation, I must multiply this expression, this side, by the number 5. So I'm just going to literally multiply it. And what happens is this, is that this 5 and this 5 cancel out. They don't become 0 like when we add and subtract, but they actually become the number 1. And what happens is what's left brings down a D. Okay? These two cancel out, and I can prove it a little bit here if I did a little bit of math on the side and showed you how these two fractions, when multiplied, a 5, kind of go back to what we talked about with fractions. We can make it into a 5 over 1. Well, 5 times 5 is D. 1 times 5 is 5. And 5 divided by 5 is 1D. And this is the long way of getting from what I just did. So keep it simple, keep it short. In order to get rid of division, just multiply it by that denominator, by that divisor. And when you do, they'll cancel out, and what's left is D. Now, just like with the addition and subtraction in the last video, whatever I do to the other one side, I must do to this side. So since I multiplied here, I must multiply here. And -6 times 50, well, remembering our rules with exponents, we multiply. 6 times 5 is 30. And since this was a negative and this is a positive, it's going to be a -30. So we found out that D is equal to -30. But we solved the equation. Now we need to check our solution. So let's plug our -30 back into the original equation. D, our -30, divided by 5 should equal -6. Let's find out. -30, putting that negative button right here, -30 divided by 5 gives me -6. And that does check out. So my answer is indeed D is -30. Well, look at the next one, number 2. 8x equals -6. And right off the bat, you're like, okay, Mr. Lewis, what's happening here? There's no symbol, there's no multiplication sign, there's no division. Well, in algebra here, if I have a number in front of a variable, this is multiplication. This coefficient of 8 is really saying 8 times x. This is multiplication. So basically the same thing needs to happen. In order to find out what x is, 8 times some number is equal to -6. Wow, that's weird. We need to figure out how to get rid of the 8. Well, what do? Since it's multiplying, we do the inverse operation of division, and we divide it by 8. All right? And 8 divided by 8 is 1, so we can just say 1x. But here's the thing. You remember how we talked about in previous videos about the hidden 1? It means that we don't necessarily have to write 1. We can just erase it. So 8x divided by 8 is just x. And we bring down our equal sign because they canceled out and left me with just x. Now, what I do to one side, I must do to the other. All right? So now I have -6 divided by 8. Well, let's find out what that is. -6 divided by 8 gives me this number right here, -0.75. Hey, wait a minute. That should be like ringing bells in your brain. Ding, 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 ding. And I recognize this number. It is one Mr. Lewis has told me to memorize. X is not only equal to -0.75, but this number written as a fraction is equal to -3/4. Both of these answers are correct. Now, why am I showing you both answers and why they're correct? Because later on, when you get into what we call slope-intercept form, and we're getting into equations and graphing, and this is an 8th grade skill and a Math 1 skill, you need to be able to switch between these two things. You need to know that, hey, this is a decimal, but it's also a fraction, and it's very important to have that skill. So both of these are correct, and I would accept either answer. All right, now, let's do a more difficult one because this looks complicated right here. This says, why does this look complicated? One, it's got two numbers and it's a fraction. Oh no, Mr. Lewis, are you telling me that we got to do with fractions and equations? Yes, I am. It is a fraction. But stop. The procedure is not changing here. I want you to look at it. I have a fraction of -3/10. And what is it doing to this h? What operation is happening here? This is saying -3/10 times h is equal to 15. This is the operation that we see. So how do I get rid of multiplication? I divide. So I'm going to divide this entire 3 by a -3/10. Well, just like before, when I divided by an 8, those numbers will cancel out. And that leaves me with just an h. But here's the thing. Just like before, if I divide by a number on one side, I must divide it on the other. So I'm going to have to divide this side by the -3/10. Well, you worried about it? That's why we have a calculator. Help us out. So I'm going to say 15 divide by -3 ABC 10. So I have a 15 divide by -3/10. I hit enter, and I get that h is equal to a -50. All right? Is this true? Well, we have to plug it back into our original equation. -3/10 times, and our answer here was -50, is equal to +15. Let's see if that works. So I'm going to go -3, wrong button, ABC 10, -3/10, and I'm going to multiply that by a -50. And what do I get when I hit enter? I get a +15, so that checked out. That is correct. So why don't you take a moment and try 3, 4, and 6 on your own. All right, so for number 3, you should have got that 30 is equal to z. How did I get that? Because there was division here, I was going to multiply by -2 on both sides, and when I do, z is equal to +30. And we can check that with the calculator. plugging it in, but for the sake of time, I'm not for this video. So for 4, you should have gotten n is equal to negative 0.25. Also, the answer would have been negative 1/4 because these are two things that are same. This decimal is this fraction. So if you got either one of these, it's good. All right, number 6. We had to divide by negative 1.1 on both sides, and when we do, you should have gotten that k is equal to positive 1.1. All right, now, just like last time, we had a couple of word sentences that I wanted to show you, and I'm going to show it to you now. First off, multiplication. When you see product, it's multiplication. So it says the product of 5 and z. The product of 5 and z is 10. And notice what I've done here. I went 5 times z. I could actually rewrite that and say 5z is equal to 10. And that's good. Then now it says a number multiplied by 5 is z. Well, it's the same thing. Well, is 10. A number, doesn't matter what it is. I can use x, y, and I'm just going to say z. And it's multiplied by 5 is 10. And then I got the same thing. Z times 5 is 10. So z times 5 is equal to 10. Well, what's z times 5? Hey, that's 5z is equal to 10. So all of these are the same thing. Division is pretty much kind of self-explanatory again. A number z divided by 2 is 5. So z divided by 2 is 5. Or we could rewrite it like what we've been showing you in the problems in this video. Z divided by 2 is 5, okay? And it's the same thing with this last one. The quotient of a number, so it's going to be the quotient of a number in 2. So z divided by 2, because that's what quotient means. It means that we are dividing. The quotient of a number, 2 and z, is 5. So, not pretty straightforward on that. And with that said, why don't you try 7 and 8 on your own? Matter of fact, why don't you look at 9 too? Try 7 and 8 on your own, and we'll discuss 9 in a second. All right, number 7. It says a number divided by 8, negative 8 is 7. So a number, doesn't matter what letter you used, I decided to use n, and divided by negative 8 is 7. So this should be how you set your equation up. Once you've done that, you solve for it, and you should have gotten the n was negative 56. Number 8, the product of negative 12 and a number is 60. So that's really saying negative 12 times a number, which I put in, is 60. So you should have something similar to this. And when you solve for it, you should have got that n is equal to 5. All right, number 9. It says you earn 85 cents for every cup of hot chocolate you sell. How many cups do you need to sell to earn $55.25? So this one is different. It doesn't follow your normal word sentences, but think this through. You earn 85 cents for every cup of hot chocolate. So let's make a variable. Our question is asking how many cups do I need to sell? So we're going to say that C represents cups. And we know this. We know that it is 85 cents per cup for every cup. So if I want to know how many cups or how much money I sell after so many cups, it's just multiplying it. So 85 cents times C, which represents cups, is going to give me $55.25. I don't know what C is, but I do know that for every cup I sell, I get 85 cents. Now it's just a matter of solving it. Since I'm multiplying, I divide. And when I do, this cancels out. I divide it on this side, and I got that C comes down, my equal comes down, and 55.25 divided by 8.85 gives me 65 cups. So I need to sell 65 cups to get $55. Well, let's find out and double check it. If I sell 65 cups and each cup is 0.85 or 85 cents. How much money did I get? $55.25. Well, that's it for this video. I will, as always, say come find me if you've got questions, because this is starting to get a little bit more complicated, especially when we're getting into the word problems now. So please, I beg you, ask me questions, and I will see you in the next video. Bye-bye.